Disclaimer: this is a fictional dramatization created for artistic, emotional, and educational storytelling purposes. All characters and events are entirely fictional and created using AI tools. No impersonation, misrepresentation, or harm is intended. The content contains scenes of danger involving child characters. However, no real persons or minors were involved in its production. Grace's Love Stories produces scripted, AI-generated stories that promote, entertain, inspire kindness, and emotional connection. We respect our viewers and strictly adhere to YouTube's policies.
Block 1. The cold seeped through my threadbare coat, a painful reminder that I didn't belong. January wind carried the scent of pine and impending snow, mingling with the wood smoke from the packhouse chimneys behind me. My breaths formed small clouds that disappeared too quickly, just like my hopes of ever being accepted. The full moon hung heavy above the forest, casting blue shadows across the snow-covered clearing, where I stood alone. As usual, they were celebrating inside, the winter solstice gathering, a time when pack bonds were strengthened and reaffirmed. But not for me. Never for me. My name is Drew Winters, the rejected Omega of the Silver Lake Pack. The irony of my surname wasn't lost on me as I trudged through knee-deep snow, moving farther from the warmth and laughter. In our world, being an Omega was rare enough. Being rejected by your own pack was almost unheard of. Almost. My grandmother once told me that Omegas were special, gifted with intuition that even Alphas couldn't match. They fear what they don't understand, she'd whispered on her deathbed, pressing her silver pendant into my palm. This has protected our bloodline for generations. Wear it always. The pendant hung beneath my clothes now, the metal cold against my skin, the only inheritance from a line of women who had learned to survive at the edges. I reached the frozen lake, its surface gleaming like polished glass beneath the moonlight. Here, away from judging eyes, I could breathe. The festivities would continue until dawn, which meant I had hours before anyone might notice my absence, not that they would. Alpha Cain had made it clear that my presence was merely tolerated, not welcomed. His mate, Celine, was worse, her amber eyes tracking me through rooms as if I might contaminate the air they breathed. Something tugged at my consciousness. A warning, humming beneath my skin. I'd learned not to ignore these feelings. Grandmother called them whispers of fate. And they'd saved me more than once from the crueler pack members' accidents. I knelt in the snow, removing my gloves despite the biting cold. The moon seemed to pulse overhead, its light intensifying as I pressed my palms against the pristine white surface. Without thinking, my fingers began to move, drawing symbols I didn't consciously recognize. The whispers grew louder, urging my hands forward until an intricate pattern stretched before me. Circles within circles, strange angular runes, and at the center, a wolf with its head thrown back in silent howl. "What are you doing out here, little ghost?" I startled, scrambling to my feet. The voice belonged to Ezra Stone, the pack's enforcer and Alpha Cain's right hand. His dark silhouette stood out starkly against the snow, shoulders broad beneath his black coat. Unlike the others, Ezra never actively participated in my humiliation, but his silence during those moments wasn't much better. Nothing. I brushed snow from my knees, positioning myself to block the drawing. Just needed some air. He moved closer, and I fought the urge to step back. Enforcers were second only to alphas in dominance and strength, their senses sharper than most. His eyes, steel gray like the winter sky before a storm, moved from my face to the ground behind me. "That doesn't look like nothing." His voice remained neutral, but something in his expression shifted. "Where did you learn those symbols?" I don't know. I was just drawing. The pendant seemed to warm against my chest, a warning of its own. Ezra crouched down, studying the pattern with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. "These are ancient calling marks. Protection circles." His gaze lifted to mine, searching. "No one's used these in centuries." The wind picked up, carrying with it the distant sound of howls. Not from the pack house, but from deeper in the forest. Ezra's head snapped up, his body tensing. "We need to go back. Now." He reached for my arm, but I stepped away. "I'm not welcome there." The words came out more bitter than intended. "Something's coming. Something." His nostrils flared as he scented the air. "You need to be behind pack walls tonight." Before I could protest again, a howl rose above the others, deeper, more commanding. Ezra's face drained of color. The Northern Territories pack shouldn't be this far south, not without declaration. He grabbed my wrist, his grip firm but not painful. "You're drawing. It's a summoning. Did you know that?" "No. I told you. I don't know what I did. It just happened." The howling grew closer. Ezra muttered a curse under his breath, then made a decision. "We don't have time to reach the pack house. My cabin is closer." I hesitated, knowing what returning with him might mean. Being alone with any dominant wolf was risky for an Omega, especially one without pack protection. But the alternative was facing whatever approached from the forest. The pendant pulsed once against my skin. "Warming, okay," I whispered. We moved swiftly through the trees, away from the lake and my strange snow drawing. Ezra's cabin appeared through the darkness. Smaller than I expected, but sturdy, with smoke curling from the chimney. He must have left in a hurry when he came looking for me. "In," he commanded, pushing open the heavy wooden door. Warmth enveloped me as I stepped inside. The cabin was sparsely furnished but clean. A fireplace, a small kitchen area, a table with 2 chairs, and through a doorway, the edge of a bed visible. Books lined one wall, surprising me. I hadn't pegged Ezra as a reader. He secured the door behind us, drawing heavy curtains across the single window. "Stay away from the windows. What's happening?" I hugged myself, suddenly aware of how out of place I was. Why would my drawing bring wolves here? Ezra moved to the fireplace, adding another log. Not just any wolves. He straightened, his profile sharp in the firelight. Wild wolves. The ones that answer to no alpha. The ones that remember the old ways. A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. "That's just a story. A pack myth." He turned to face me fully. "Is it? Then why do the symbols you drew match exactly those in this book?" He crossed to the bookshelf, pulling down a leather-bound volume so ancient the binding cracked as he opened it. The pages he turned to showed the same circular pattern I'd drawn. The same runes. The same howling wolf. "I don't understand." My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. "I've never seen this book, yet you reproduced this perfectly." His tone wasn't accusatory, but curious. Perhaps the first time anyone from the pack had shown interest in me that wasn't hostile. "The text says these marks call the White Guardians when an Omega is in peril. When balance has been disrupted." Outside, the howling stopped abruptly, leaving a silence more terrifying than the noise. Ezra's head tilted, listening to something beyond human hearing range. "They've surrounded us," he said quietly. My heart hammered against my ribs. "What do they want?" "You." His eyes met mine. "They've come for you." A sharp crack against the window made us both jump. Then another. Something was throwing itself against the glass. "Stay back," Ezra warned, moving to position himself between me and the window. The pendant burned now, almost painfully hot. Without thinking, I reached for it, pulling it from beneath my sweater. The silver gleamed in the firelight, its engravings matching some of the symbols I'd drawn. The moment it was exposed, the assaults on the window ceased. "What is that?" Ezra asked, his attention fixed on the pendant. Before I could answer, a voice spoke. Not from inside the cabin, but somehow inside my mind. "Daughter of Winterborn, we have answered your call." I gasped, stumbling backward until I hit the wall. "Did you hear that?" Ezra's confused expression was answer enough. "Hear what?" "The pack has broken covenant. The Omega's place is sacred. We have come to restore balance." "There's a voice," I whispered. Talking about covenants and balance, Ezra moved closer, his expression guarded but not disbelieving. "What else is it saying?" "Open the door, daughter of Winterborn. We mean no harm to you or the protector who shelters you." My legs moved of their own accord, carrying me toward the door despite Ezra's shout of alarm. The pendant led me forward, pulling like a magnet toward whatever waited outside. "Drew, stop." Ezra grabbed my shoulders. "You don't know what they are." I swallowed hard. I think I do. With strength I didn't know I possessed, I slipped from his grasp and unbolted the door. It swung open to reveal the night, and with it, 30 pairs of eyes reflecting the moonlight. White wolves, larger than any I'd ever seen, their fur silvery in the darkness. They formed a perfect circle around the cabin, sitting in the snow, watching. The largest of them, its eyes an impossible shade of blue, rose and approached. Ezra growled low in his throat, shifting to his beta form, not fully wolf, but dangerous nonetheless, claws extending from his fingertips. But the white wolf ignored him, its gaze fixed on me, on the pendant. The bloodline continues. The voice in my mind sounded pleased. We have watched and waited. The Silver Lake Pack has forgotten the old laws. They have forgotten why omegas are sacred. I don't understand, I said aloud, aware that Ezra was staring at me as if I'd lost my mind. You will. The wolf bowed its massive head. Tomorrow, when the sun rises. For tonight, you are under our protection. No harm will come to you while we stand guard. As if responding to a silent command, the other wolves settled into the snow, their bodies forming a living barrier around the cabin. Ezra pulled me back inside, closing the door. What just happened? He demanded. They're protecting me. The realization felt strange on my tongue. They said the pack has broken some covenant, that omegas are supposed to be sacred. He ran a hand through his dark hair, conflict evident in his expression. There are old stories, legends about the first pack agreements, before alphas ruled absolutely. He glanced toward the window. I never believed them. Neither did I. I sank into one of the chairs, suddenly exhausted. But they're real, and they're out there. And somehow I called them. Ezra studied me with new eyes, as if seeing me for the first time. Who are you, Drew Winters? I don't know anymore. I closed my fingers around the pendant. But I think I'm going to find out. The night stretched before us, filled with questions neither of us could answer. Outside, 30 white wolves kept silent vigil, their presence a promise, or perhaps a threat, to the pack that had rejected me. By morning, everything would change. I could feel it in my bones, in the whispers that had guided my hands through the snow, in the ancient silver that hung from my neck. For the first time in my life, being alone didn't mean being powerless. Sleep evaded me that night, despite the unexpected comfort of Ezra's spare blankets. I curled in the armchair near the fire while he took the floor nearby, neither of us willing to lower our guard completely. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those 30 white wolves, their impossible stillness as they watched me. The pendant remained warm against my skin, a constant reminder that nothing would ever be the same. Dawn arrived with pale fingers of light stretching through gaps in the curtains. I rose quietly, careful not to wake Ezra, whose breathing had finally deepened into sleep just hours before. His features were softer in repose, the perpetual vigilance momentarily abandoned. I'd never been close enough to notice the faint scar that ran along his jawline, or how his dark lashes contrasted against his skin. I approached the window, drawing back the curtain just enough to peek outside. My breath caught in my throat. They were still there. 30 white wolves, their fur almost luminescent in the early morning light, positioned in a perfect circle around the cabin. As if sensing my gaze, the largest one, their leader, lifted its head, those impossible blue eyes finding mine through the glass. A strange sensation flooded my mind, like water breaking through a dam. The time has come. Daughter of Winterborn. Step outside. My hand moved to the door handle before I'd made a conscious decision. Where are you going? Ezra's voice, rough with sleep, startled me. I turned to find him on his feet, alert despite the dark circles beneath his eyes. They're asking for me. Asking? His eyebrows drew together. Drew, those are wild wolves. Not entirely. I touched the pendant. They speak to me. Here. I tapped my temple. They said it's time. Disbelief warred with curiosity on his face. After a moment, he sighed. I'm coming with you. I don't think... Non-negotiable. His tone left no room for argument. Whatever's happening, you're not facing it alone. Something warm unfurled in my chest at his words, No one had stood beside me in a very long time. We stepped out together into the crisp morning air. The snow crunched beneath our boots, the only sound in the otherwise perfect stillness. The wolves watched our approach, their breathing creating small clouds that dissipated in the sunlight. The leader rose, moving toward us with graceful, measured steps. Ezra tensed beside me, but I placed a hand on his arm, a silent request to wait, to trust. The massive wolf stopped a few feet away, its gaze moving between my face and the pendant. The covenant has been broken for too long. The balance must be restored. What covenant? I asked aloud, for Ezra's benefit. The wolf sat, its posture regal. In the beginning, before humans learned to change their skin, we were the guardians of the wild places. When the first shapeshifters emerged, we taught them our ways. The pack structure was born, Alpha, Beta, Omega, each with purpose, each with power. Images flooded my mind. Ancient forests, people gathered around fires, wolves moving among them as equals. I gasped at the clarity of these visions, at the sense of belonging they evoked. Alphas to lead with strength, betas to support with loyalty, omegas to balance with wisdom. But over time, the shapeshifters forgot. Power became everything. Strength became the only virtue. Omegas, once revered for their connection to the old ways, became outcasts. I swallowed hard, the truth of those words striking deep. Why me? Why now? Your bloodline never forgot. The winterborn women have carried our memory for generations, hidden among the packs that turned from us. Your grandmother was the last to know the full truth. Now that burden falls to you. My grandmother never told me about any of this. She died before your awakening. The pendant you wear was to guide you until we could come. I clutched the silver disc. And what happens now? The wolf's eyes seemed to glow brighter. Now we remind the Silver Lake pack of the old laws, of what happens when an Omega is mistreated. A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. I don't want revenge. This is not about revenge. It is about restoration. Ezra cleared his throat. I can't hear what it's saying to you, but I'm guessing it's about the pack. About how they've treated you. I nodded, surprised by his perception. He continued, his voice low. You should know. Not all of us agreed with how things are done. But challenging an alpha, he left the sentence unfinished, means death. I completed for him. I know. The white wolf's attention shifted to Ezra, studying him with those ancient eyes. Then, to my shock, it inclined its head in what could only be described as respect. This one has a true heart. He has watched over you when he could, though his position is precarious. The enforcer who enforces reluctantly. Heat crept into my cheeks. He's just doing his duty. Is he? The wolf seemed almost amused. Ask him why he followed you to the lake last night. Ask him why he has left food at your door when winter has been harshest. Ask him why he stands between you and the alpha's mate whenever possible. My eyes widened as I turned to Ezra. Is that true? His expression gave nothing away, but the slight tension in his jaw told me enough. We should get back to the pack house. They'll be looking for me by now. The leader of the White Wolves rose. We will accompany you. It is time the Silver Lake pack remembers what we are, what you are. They're coming with us, I told Ezra. To the pack house. His face paled slightly. Drew, that's not a good idea. Alpha Cain will see it as a threat. It is meant to be. The wolf's voice in my mind held no compromise. I don't think we have a choice, I said quietly. This is happening, with or without our approval. Ezra studied my face for a long moment, then nodded once. Stay close to me. We began the walk back to the pack territory, the morning sun climbing higher. The white wolves moved with us, surrounding us in a protective formation that left no doubt about their intentions. Their paws made no sound in the snow, an unnatural silence that raised the hair on the back of my neck despite their apparent alliance. As we approached the edge of the packlands, the scent of anxiety reached us. Dozens of werewolves on high alert, having surely detected the presence of so many unknown wolves in their territory. Ezra's steps slowed, his body automatically shifting to place himself slightly in front of me. Let me do the talking, he murmured. I might have argued any other day, but the gravity of our situation wasn't lost on me. We crossed the invisible boundary line, and immediately, shapes emerged from between the trees, pack sentries in partial shift, their eyes glowing amber and teeth elongated in warning. Ezra? One stepped forward, Nikolai, the head of security. His gaze darted between us and the white wolves, disbelief evident. "What the hell is this?" "We need to speak with Alpha Kane," Ezra replied, his voice steady despite the tension rolling off him in waves. "You've brought strange wolves into our territory without permission." Nikolai's hand moved to the weapon at his hip, a silver-bladed knife, standard for centuries. "That's treason." "Look at them, Nick," Ezra said quietly. "Have you ever seen wolves like these? Do they smell like any pack you know?" Nikolai's nostrils flared as he scented the air, confusion crossing his features. "What are they?" "Something older than our laws," Ezra answered. "Something we need to understand before we make decisions we can't take back." The leader of the white wolves stepped forward, and the sentries flinched collectively, its blue eyes fixed on Nikolai, unblinking. "We come under ancient right, the right of retribution and restoration. We will speak with your Alpha." I repeated its words, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. Stronger, more assured than I'd ever been. Nikolai's gaze shifted to me, truly seeing me perhaps for the first time. "The rejected Omega," he said, not unkindly. "Always knew there was something different about you." He turned to one of the other sentries. "Tell Alpha Kane we're coming. Tell him." He hesitated. "Tell him the White Guardians have returned." The name sent a ripple through the gathered wolves. Recognition in some of the older ones, confusion in the younger. The sentry nodded sharply before disappearing toward the pack house. "How do you know what they're called?" I asked Nikolai. A sad smile touched his lips. "My grandmother told stories. No one believed her." His gaze moved over the white wolves. "Looks like she was right all along." We continued forward, our strange procession drawing stares from pack members who emerged from their homes to watch. Children were hurried inside, doors locked behind them. The white wolves paid no attention to the spectacle they created, their focus seemingly fixed on our destination. The large stone house that stood at the center of the territory. Alpha Kane waited on the wide porch, his imposing figure flanked by his inner circle. Celine, his mate, stood at his right hand, her golden eyes narrowed in undisguised hatred as they fell on me. To his left stood the pack elders, those who advised on matters of tradition and law. Their expressions ranged from fear to awe as they beheld our approach. The white wolves fanned out as we reached the clearing before the house, forming a half-circle behind us. Their leader remained at my side, its shoulder almost level with my hip. "Explain yourself, Enforcer." Alpha Kane's voice boomed across the space between us, power vibrating in each syllable. Ezra stepped forward, his posture respectful but not submissive. "Alpha, these wolves appeared at the northern border last night. They surrounded your Omega and me at my cabin. They communicated with her. Whispers erupted among the gathered pack members. Celine's lip curled in disgust. "She is hardly my Omega," Alpha Kane replied coldly, "and animals do not communicate." His ignorance is dangerous. The white wolf's voice in my mind carried a note of warning. "Step forward, daughter of Winterborn. Speak with our voice." Before I could question what that meant, the pendant at my throat began to glow, a soft silver light that spread upward to illuminate my face. A collective gasp rose from the pack. I felt a presence within me, ancient and powerful, guiding my words. "Alpha Kane of the Silver Lake Pack," my voice rang out, louder than should have been possible. "You stand accused of breaking the covenant of the first days, the covenant that states, an Omega's place is sacred, for they bridge what was and what will be. They are the keepers of old knowledge, the balance to an Alpha's strength. You have rejected what should be treasured. You have dishonored what should be revered." The words flowed through me like water, knowledge I had never possessed suddenly clear as crystal. Alpha Kane's face darkened with rage, but something else flickered beneath it, fear. "What trick is this?" he demanded, but his voice had lost some of its authority. The white wolf leader stepped forward. "Show them who you are." Without knowing quite how I knew to do it, I raised the pendant high. "I am Drew Winters, of the Winterborn line, the last of the true Omegas, guardians of balance and keepers of the covenant. The pendant's light intensified, casting my shadow long across the snow. And I have called the white guardians to witness my claim. Alpha Kane's eyes widened, recognition dawning. The white guardians are a myth. Are they? I gestured to the 30 silent wolves. They stand before you now, as they stood before the first Alpha when the pact was made. They have watched as you twisted the old ways, as power corrupted what was meant to be sacred. Selene stepped forward, her beauty sharp as a blade. This is absurd. She's nothing but a weak, unwanted. The leader of the White Wolves growled, the sound reverberating through the clearing like thunder. Selene fell silent, taking an involuntary step back. The time of reckoning has come, I continued, the ancient presence within me strengthening my resolve. The balance will be restored. A heavy silence fell over the clearing. Pack members exchanged uneasy glances, some of the older ones whispering behind raised hands. I stood my ground, the pendant's light casting strange shadows across the snow, illuminating faces in harsh relief. The presence within me felt both foreign and familiar, as if a part of myself long dormant had awakened. Alpha Kane's composure cracked further, a vein pulsing at his temple. What exactly do you want? His voice had lost its usual commanding edge. Truth, acknowledgement, restoration. The White Wolf's voice echoed in my mind. The covenant must be honored, I said, channeling its words. The true place of Omegas must be restored, not just in this pack, but in all packs. And if I refuse? Alpha Kane's eyes narrowed, his shoulders squaring. The leader of the White Wolves stepped forward, its massive paws silent in the snow. All 30 wolves moved in unison, closing ranks behind me. The message was clear without words. Refusal was not an option. One of the elders, a woman with silver-streaked hair and knowing eyes, pushed through the crowd. Helena, the pack historian, keeper of our chronicles and traditions. She approached slowly, her gaze fixed not on Alpha Kane but on me. I knew your grandmother, she said softly. Evelyn Winters. She came to me once before you were born, and spoke of a time when balance would return. Her eyes shifted to the White Wolves, wonder and fear mingling in her expression. The old texts speak of them, the first guardians from whom our kind learned to shift. We've forgotten so much. Alpha Kane's jaw tightened. Helena, step back. This is pack business. This is older than pack business, she replied, her quiet voice carrying surprising authority. This is about the foundation of everything we are. She turned to address the gathered wolves. Before hierarchies, before territories and dominance displays, there was balance. Alpha, Beta, Omega, each vital, each respected. Selene laughed, the sound brittle as ice breaking. Are you suggesting we bow to her? She pointed at me, contempt dripping from every word. A nobody who couldn't even defend herself against the weakest of us? A low growl rumbled from Ezra's chest, subtle enough that only those closest could hear it, but unmistakable in its warning. The realization that he was defending me, here, publicly, sent a flutter through my chest despite the tension of the moment. Helena's gaze hardened as she looked at Selene. That attitude is precisely why the White Guardians have returned. Strength without wisdom is tyranny. Power without compassion is corruption. The elder speaks truth, she remembers. The White Wolf's approval warmed my thoughts. What happens now? I asked. The words meant for the wolf beside me, but spoken aloud. The trial of remembrance. Before I could question what that meant, the White Wolf threw back its head and howled, a sound that seemed to pierce the very fabric of reality. The other 29 joined in perfect harmony, their voices creating a melody that vibrated through the earth beneath our feet. The pendant at my throat pulsed in rhythm with their call, its light spreading outward in a silver wave. The world around us blurred, colors bleeding into one another like watercolors in rain. The pack house, the trees, even the sky itself seemed to dissolve, replaced by somewhere else, somewhere ancient. We stood in the same clearing but transformed. The pack house was gone, replaced by a circle of standing stones. The forest surrounding us was older, wilder, the trees massive and primeval. A fire burned in the center of the stone circle, its flames casting dancing shadows. And all around us, wolves. Not just the 30 white guardians, but hundreds of wolves of every color and size, watching from the trees. What is this? Alpha Kane's voice held a note of panic. What have you done? Nothing, I whispered, as awed as everyone else. This is their doing. This is the place of first covenant, the white wolf explained, where shapeshifters and wolf-kind first joined in purpose. We have brought you between, not past, not present, but the memory held in blood and bone. The fire in the center suddenly roared higher, and from within its flames stepped a figure, a woman with hair as white as mine, wearing a simple dress of animal hides. Her eyes, when they met mine, were the same impossible blue as the white wolf leaders. The first Omega, Helena breathed, sinking to her knees in reverence. The woman smiled, the expression transforming her face from merely beautiful to radiant. I have been many things to many people, she said, her voice like distant music. First and last, beginning and end. Her gaze swept over our gathered pack. You have forgotten the way of things. Alpha Kane, despite his earlier bravado, seemed unable to speak, his eyes wide as he beheld the apparition. When the world was younger, when humans first learned to change their skin and run with wolves, there was balance, the woman continued. The strong led, but were tempered by the wise. The loyal supported, but were guided by the visionary. Her eyes fell on me. The Omegas were the bridge between worlds, between knowledge old and new. They felt what others could not feel, saw what others could not see. She turned to Alpha Kane. You have led with strength alone, forsaking wisdom. You have surrounded yourself with those who only echo your thoughts. Never challenge them. An Alpha's word is law, he managed to say, though his voice lacked conviction. A poor law that serves only the lawmaker, she replied. Look around you, Alpha of Silver Lake. See what your leadership has wrought. The scene shifted again, and suddenly we were seeing the pack through new eyes. Through truth sight, I somehow knew. The bonds between pack members appeared as visible threads of light, some strong and vibrant, others thin and fraying. Around Alpha Kane, the threads were predominantly dark red, fear bonds, not loyalty bonds. Only Celine and a few of his inner circle showed the deeper connection of true allegiance. More disturbing were the shadows that clung to many pack members. Depression, anxiety, resentment. The younger wolves especially carried these burdens, their spirits dimmed by the oppressive hierarchy. And at the edges of the vision, barely connected to anyone, was my own figure, a pale light surrounded by a nimbus of silver, with only a single golden thread connecting me to Ezra. The sight of that connection, bright and true despite everything, stole my breath. This is not a healthy pack, the woman said softly. This is a pack dying from within. Alpha Kane's face had gone ashen. Beside him, Celine's perfect features twisted with rage. Lies, she hissed. Illusions meant to weaken us. The first Omega turned her gaze to Celine, and for a moment, the Alpha's mate seemed to shrink beneath that ancient stare. Your ambition poisons what could be nurturing. Your fear of being replaced drives you to destroy any you perceive as threat, especially her. She nodded toward me, the one whose very nature calls for harmony you cannot comprehend. Celine fell silent, her golden eyes dropping to the ground. What would you have me do? Alpha Kane asked, his voice subdued. The woman's expression softened slightly. Remember the covenant, restore the balance, honor the sacred role of each wolf in your care, not just those whose strength mirrors your own. She moved toward me, her steps leaving no impression in the snow. The Winterborn line has kept the old knowledge safe, waiting for the time when hearts would be ready to hear it again. She reached out, her fingers brushing the pendant at my throat. This was mine once, passed down through blood and bone, waiting for the one who would have courage to stand when standing seemed impossible. I didn't stand, I whispered, shame washing through me. I hid. I endured. I never fought back. That little sister, she said gently, is the greatest courage of all. To endure without becoming what has hurt you. To remain compassionate when shown none. She looked over at Ezra, and not all turned blind eyes to your suffering. Some watched, and in watching began to remember. Ezra met her gaze steadily, something like recognition passing between them. The trial of remembrance is complete, she announced, stepping back toward the fire. The choice now lies with the Alpha of Silver Lake. Honor the covenant, restore the Omega to her rightful place, or what? Alpha Cain asked, tension evident in every line of his body. Or the White Guardians will withdraw their protection from your bloodline, from all shifter bloodlines who reject the balance. Her expression grew grave. Without them, the gift of changing skin will fade within 3 generations. Your grandchildren will be human, nothing more. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the pack. To lose the wolf, it was unthinkable, a fate worse than death to most shifters. The flames around the woman rose higher, beginning to obscure her form. You have until the next full moon to decide, to remember what you were meant to be. The fire surged, engulfing her completely, and when it receded, she was gone. The ancient forest and standing stones began to fade, reality bleeding back into the strange vision. The pack house returning, the massive trees shrinking to their normal size, the hundreds of watching wolves disappearing, until only the 30 white guardians remained. We all stood in shocked silence. The pendant's light dimmed, though it still glowed faintly against my skin. The presence that had spoken through me receded somewhat, leaving me feeling suddenly exhausted, my knees weak beneath me. Ezra moved closer, his shoulder brushing mine in silent support. Helena was the first to recover her voice. It's all true, she whispered, awe and vindication mingling in her tone. Everything in the oldest texts, the covenant, the guardians, the balance, all of it, true. Alpha Cain seemed shaken to his core, his usual imposing presence diminished. He looked at me as if seeing a stranger. You knew nothing of this? Before now? I shook my head. Only what my grandmother told me before she died. That Omegas were special, not weak. That we had gifts others didn't understand. I touched the pendant. She gave me this for protection, but never explained what it truly was. Because you weren't ready, Helena said gently. The knowledge comes when it's needed, not before. That's how the Winterborn line has always worked, according to the chronicles. Celine had not moved from her spot on the porch, her beautiful face blank with shock. For the first time since I'd known her, she seemed at a loss for cruel words. Alpha Cain straightened his shoulders, some of his authority returning as he processed what had happened. We will convene the council. This revelation requires consideration. He stalls. The white wolf's voice murmured in my mind. His pride wars with his fear. The white guardians will remain until the decision is made, I said, surprising myself with my directness. They will ensure that the covenant is honored. Alpha Cain's jaw tightened, but he nodded once. The council will meet at sundown. Until then, you are... He hesitated, seemingly unsure how to address me now. Under our protection, Ezra finished for him, stepping forward. His voice carried the weight of his position as enforcer, but held a new note of defiance that sent a ripple of reaction through the watching pack. Alpha Cain's eyes narrowed at the challenge, but after a moment, he inclined his head in reluctant acceptance. Sundown, he repeated, before turning and disappearing into the pack house, Celine and the other advisors following quickly behind. As the crowd dispersed, whispers and stares following me more intently than ever before, Ezra guided me away from the clearing, the white wolves falling into step around us. Are you all right? He asked quietly, once we were out of earshot of the others. I realized I was trembling, the aftermath of whatever power had flowed through me, leaving me drained. I don't know. Everything's happening so fast. Yesterday I was nothing. You were never nothing. The fierceness in his voice startled me. Not to me. I looked up at him, really looked, and saw the truth in his gray eyes. Concern, respect, and something deeper I wasn't ready to name. The golden thread I'd seen connecting us in the vision seemed almost visible again for a moment. "Why did you never say anything?" I asked. "About leaving food, about watching over me." A shadow crossed his face. "My position. It's complicated. As enforcer, I'm bound to uphold the Alpha's decisions, even when I disagree." His jaw tightened. "I did what I could without openly defying pack law. And now?" His eyes met mine, determination hardening his features. "Now everything changes. Block 4. Ezra led me to a small cabin at the edge of the pack territory, a guest dwelling, rarely used except during inter-pack gatherings. It was simple but comfortable, with a stone fireplace and sturdy furniture. The white wolves positioned themselves around the perimeter, their vigilant presence both reassuring and surreal. "You should rest," Ezra said, kindling a fire with practiced ease. "Whatever happened back there, it took a toll on you." He wasn't wrong. My limbs felt leaden, my mind foggy from the strain of channeling whatever ancient force had spoken through me, but rest seemed impossible with so many questions swirling through my thoughts. "What happens if Alpha Cain refuses?" I asked, sinking into an armchair near the growing warmth of the flames. "If he doesn't honor the covenant?" Ezra's expression grew somber as he straightened from the hearth. "I don't think he can afford to refuse. The threat of losing the shift. It's the one thing no Alpha would risk." He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of his unease. But change doesn't happen easily, especially for those who've held power for a long time. "Celine will fight it," I said quietly. "She's hated me from the moment I arrived. Because she sensed what you are." He took the chair opposite mine, leaning forward with elbows on his knees. "Even without understanding it, she recognized the threat you posed to her position." I laughed bitterly. "Me? A threat? I've spent years trying to make myself invisible. Yet you couldn't be, could you?" His gaze was intense, searching. "There was always something about you that drew attention, even when you tried to hide. And Omega's presence affects the pack, whether acknowledged or not." The leader of the White Wolves appeared in the doorway, its blue eyes reflecting the firelight. "He speaks truth. Your very nature disrupts false hierarchies. Those who rule through fear rather than respect will always sense the danger you represent." "I never wanted to be dangerous," I whispered. "The gentlest rains can still erode mountains, given time." The wolf padded into the cabin, settling on the rug between Ezra and me. "Rest now. We stand guard." Despite my racing thoughts, exhaustion soon won out. I drifted into uneasy sleep, filled with fragmented dreams. My grandmother's voice, the first Omega's piercing blue eyes, symbols drawn in snow that rearranged themselves into words I almost understood. I woke to twilight shadows and the sound of voices outside the cabin. Ezra was no longer in the chair across from me, but a blanket had been draped over my curled form. The fire had been maintained, crackling cheerfully in the hearth. The white wolf leader still lay on the rug, watching me with those ancient eyes. The pack gathers. The council convenes soon. I pushed myself upright, still feeling the lingering fatigue in my muscles. How long was I asleep? Long enough for whispers to spread, for factions to form. The wolf rose, stretching its massive body. Not all resist the awakening. Many remember the old stories, the truths hidden in tales told to pups. A soft knock at the door preceded Ezra's entrance. His expression was guarded, but tension radiated from him. "You're awake. Good." He moved to my side, his eyes quickly assessing me. "How do you feel?" "Like I ran 100 miles, I admitted. But better." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "The council has gathered. Alpha Cain has requested your presence." His mouth tightened slightly. "And the presence of the guardians." I glanced at the white wolf. "All of them. I will accompany you. The others will remain vigilant." Its tone brooked no argument. Night had fallen completely by the time we made our way to the council lodge, a circular building of stone and timber at the heart of pack territory. Unlike the earlier confrontation, the atmosphere now was one of tense formality. Pack members lined the path, their expressions ranging from awe to suspicion. as I passed with Ezra at my side and the massive white wolf following a few paces behind. The lodge was illuminated by dozens of lanterns, casting warm light on the faces of those assembled inside. Alpha Kane and Celine at the head of the large round table, the elders and ranking pack members positioned around it according to status. A single empty chair waited opposite the Alpha. My chair, I realized with a jolt, positioned as equal, not subordinate. Ezra guided me forward, his hand briefly touching the small of my back, a gesture of support that didn't go unnoticed by watching eyes. The white wolf padded silently behind us, its presence causing several council members to shift nervously in their seats. Drew Winters. Alpha Kane acknowledged me, his voice carefully neutral. Be seated. I took the offered chair, fighting the urge to shrink beneath the collective gaze of the council. Ezra remained standing just behind me, a breach of protocol that drew a sharp look from the Alpha but no verbal rebuke. The council has been in discussion since the events of this morning, Alpha Kane began. We have reviewed the oldest texts, consulted with our historian, and debated the implications of what was revealed. Helena, seated to his right, nodded gravely. The chronicles speak of the Covenant, though much has been lost to time. What we witnessed today confirms what many dismissed as mere legend. Alpha Kane's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The threat posed by breaking Covenant cannot be ignored. If the White Guardians withdraw their protection from our bloodlines... If I may speak, Alpha. A voice rose from further down the table. Lucas, one of the younger council members, respected for his fairness despite his relative youth. Perhaps we're approaching this wrong. We're discussing this as a threat to be managed, rather than a truth to be embraced. Celine's golden eyes narrowed. Meaning? Lucas met her gaze steadily. Meaning that perhaps the return of the White Guardians isn't a punishment, but an opportunity. To reclaim knowledge we've lost. To strengthen our pack by honoring all its members, not just the strongest. Murmurs of agreement rippled from several council members, primarily the younger ones. Celine's perfect features arranged themselves into a cold smile. How very idealistic, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. And practically speaking, you suggest we simply overturn pack hierarchy because of one... anomaly? Her gaze flicked dismissively toward me. The white wolf growled low in its throat, the sound reverberating through the lodge and silencing further commentary from Celine. The hierarchy itself isn't the issue, I found myself saying, the words coming more easily than I expected. It's the imbalance. Alphas lead. That's natural and necessary, but leadership without wisdom becomes tyranny. Strength without compassion becomes cruelty. Alpha Kane's expression darkened at the implied criticism, but he didn't interrupt. The old texts speak of triads, Helena added. Alpha, Beta, Omega, working in harmony, each with distinct gifts, each essential. She spread weathered hands on the table. We've reduced our understanding to simple dominance. Alpha above Beta above Omega. But that was never the true way. Tell them what you saw, the white wolf urged in my mind. The truth sight revealed more than just bonds. I took a deep breath. When the first Omega showed us the pack through truth sight, I saw more than just the fear bonds surrounding leadership. I saw the shadows clinging to our youngest members. Depression, anxiety, resentment. I saw talent and potential being suppressed because it didn't fit the narrow definition of worth we've created. Uncomfortable shifting around the table told me my words had struck home. Many avoided my eyes, perhaps recognizing their own contributions to the pack's dysfunction. I've spent years being told my sensitivity was weakness, I continued, gaining confidence with each word. That feeling too deeply made me unworthy. But what if that sensitivity is exactly what the pack needs? What if feeling deeply is how we maintain our humanity while embracing our wolves? Lucas nodded emphatically. We've lost pack members, good wolves who left because they couldn't thrive under our current structure, creativity stifled, empathy punished, intelligence directed only toward dominance games instead of true progress. Alpha Kane raised a hand, silencing further discussion. The question before this council is specific. Do we acknowledge the Covenant and restore the Omega to her rightful place, whatever that might mean? Or do we risk the consequences of refusal? He reduces transformation to transaction, the White Wolf observed, still missing the greater truth. It's not about me, I said quietly, but with growing certainty. It's about balance, about remembering what we were meant to be, not just as individuals, but as a community. I touched the pendant at my throat, drawing strength from its warmth. I'm not asking to be elevated above others. I'm asking for all of us to be recognized for what we truly bring to the pack. A tense silence fell over the lodge. Alpha Kane studied me with an unreadable expression, his fingers drumming once on the table before stilling. And what exactly does an Omega bring? He finally asked, genuine curiosity breaking through his defensive posture. The pendant warmed against my skin, knowledge flowing into me like water finding its channel. Intuition. Emotional intelligence. The ability to sense undercurrents that others miss. Healing. Not just of bodies, but of spirits. I met his gaze directly. An alpha protects the pack from external threats. An Omega protects it from internal ones. Something shifted in Alpha Kane's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or memory. My grandmother spoke of such things, he admitted reluctantly. Before she died, she told me I had forgotten something important. I thought she was just rambling in her final days. She remembered, Helena said softly. The oldest ones always do. Celine's composure finally cracked. This is absurd. We're discussing dismantling pack structure because of ghost stories and hallucinations. She turned to Alpha Kane, her voice dropping to a silken persuasiveness. My love, surely you see this for the manipulation it is. The White Wolf moved forward, its massive form commanding attention. It looked directly at Celine, then deliberately turned to me. Show them. Understanding flooded me. I rose from my seat, the pendant glowing faintly as I approached Celine. She recoiled slightly, but pride kept her from retreating further. May I asked, extending my hand toward her. Don't touch me, she hissed. I don't need to. I closed my eyes, reaching out with senses I hadn't known I possessed until today. The pendant guided me, showing me Celine's truth beneath the perfect exterior. You weren't born to the Silver Lake Pack, I said softly, the words coming from somewhere beyond my conscious knowledge. You came from a smaller pack in the West, one that was destroyed in territorial wars. I opened my eyes, meeting her shocked gaze. You were the only survivor, a child hidden in the root cellar while everyone you loved was slaughtered. Color drained from Celine's face. How could you possibly? You rebuilt yourself from nothing. Made yourself beautiful, desirable, strong. Everything that would ensure you'd never be vulnerable again. My voice gentled further. You saw in me the weakness you despised in yourself, the part you buried so deep you thought it had died. Tears gathered in her golden eyes, quickly blinked away. Stop this, she whispered, but the venom had left her voice. Your fear isn't weakness, Celine. Neither is mine. I stepped back, addressing the entire council now. An Omega sees truth, painful truths we hide even from ourselves. But seeing isn't enough. Healing requires acknowledgement, requires bringing light to shadow. Alpha Kane was watching his mate with new eyes, perhaps seeing beneath her perfect facade for the first time. He reached for her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she allowed the contact. The first Omega spoke of balance, he said, his voice thoughtful. Perhaps we've strayed further from the original purpose of Pack than I realized. He turned to Helena. The Chronicles. Do they offer guidance on how to restore this balance? Practically speaking? The historian's eyes lit up. Yes, Alpha. The oldest texts describe a triumvirate leadership, Alpha, Beta, and Omega working in concert. Different responsibilities, equal importance. A structure that honors strength while valuing wisdom and compassion, Lucas added, where decisions are made with both head and heart. Alpha Kane nodded slowly, his gaze returning to me. And you believe you can fulfill this role? This Omega leadership position? The question caught me off guard. After years of being dismissed and devalued, the thought of leadership seemed almost laughable. But the pendant pulsed with reassurance, and the White Wolf's steady presence bolstered my courage. I don't know yet what I'm capable of, I answered honestly. But I'm willing to learn, to become what the Pack needs. Ezra stepped forward, breaking protocol once more. If I may, Alpha, Drew has shown more courage today than many who claim superior strength. She faced rejection, isolation, even cruelty, yet maintained her compassion, her integrity. His gray eyes met mine briefly before returning to Alpha Kane. Those are qualities of a true leader, regardless of designation. The endorsement from the pack's enforcer, respected even by those who feared him, carried significant weight. Murmurs of agreement rose from around the table. Alpha Kane was silent for a long moment, his expression thoughtful as he regarded the White Wolf, then me, then the assembled council. Finally, he straightened in his chair. The council will recess to deliberate. Drew Winters will be summoned when we've reached our decision. As the council members filed out, many glanced my way with new consideration in their eyes. Celine was the last to leave, pausing at the door to look back at me. The hatred had faded from her expression, replaced by something more complex, wariness mixed with reluctant respect. "Come," Ezra said quietly, his hand finding the small of my back again. We wait. The waiting stretched for hours. Ezra and I returned to the guest cabin, where I paced restlessly despite my lingering fatigue. The White Wolf sat motionless by the hearth, its ancient eyes following my movement. "What if they decide against honoring the covenant?" I asked, voicing the fear that had been growing since we left the council lodge. "What if Alpha Kane decides the risk is worth taking?" "He won't," Ezra replied with quiet certainty. "Kane is many things, stubborn, traditional, sometimes harsh. But he's not foolish. He won't gamble the future of shifters on pride. The Alpha struggles with change, not with truth," the White Wolf added. "He has seen. He cannot unsee." I sank into a chair, running my fingers over the pendant that had transformed my life in a single day. I don't know if I can be what they need. What if I fail? What if this is all some cosmic mistake? Ezra knelt before me, his gray eyes intent on mine. "Drew, you've survived years of rejection without becoming bitter. You've maintained your compassion when shown none. If anyone is prepared for this role, it's you." His hand covered mine, warm and steady, "and you won't be alone." The simple touch sent a current through me. Comfort, connection, and something deeper that made my heart quicken. The golden thread I'd glimpsed in the vision seemed to pulse between us, stronger now. "Why did you help me?" I asked softly. "All those times when no one was looking. The food left at my door. The small interventions. You risked your position." His expression softened, vulnerability breaking through his usually guarded demeanor. "At first it was just basic decency. The pack's treatment of you didn't sit right." He hesitated, his thumb tracing small circles on the back of my hand. "But then I started noticing things. How you would leave half your dinner for the stray cats behind the dining hall. How you taught reading to the younger pack members when others refused. How you never sought revenge even when you had every right. I hadn't realized he'd observed so much, had seen me when I thought myself invisible. You were strength of a different kind," he continued. "Not the kind our pack valued, but the kind I couldn't help admiring." A faint smile touched his lips. "The kind I couldn't help falling for." My breath caught. "Ezra." A sharp knock interrupted whatever I might have said. The door opened to reveal Nikolai, his expression unreadable. "The council has reached its decision. Your presence is requested, both of you." His eyes flickered to the White Wolf. "All three of you, it seems." The walk back to the council lodge felt like a march to judgment. The night had deepened, the full moon now high overhead, bathing the pack grounds in silver light that reminded me of the pendant's glow. Pack members watched from windows and doorways as we passed, their curious gazes following our progress. This time, the council lodge was fuller, not just council members, but representatives from every family within the pack. Alpha Kane and Celine still occupied their positions at the head of the table, but something had shifted in their demeanor. The aggressive defensiveness had faded, replaced by a sober gravity. "Drew Winters," Alpha Kane began, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "The council has deliberated on the matter of the covenant and what was revealed to us today." I stood straighter, Ezra's solid presence at my shoulder lending me strength. For generations, the Silver Lake Pack has prided itself on strength, on dominance, on an unbroken line of powerful alphas. Kane's gaze swept the room, but strength alone, it seems, is not enough. Helena stepped forward, a leather-bound volume open in her hands. The oldest chronicles speak of balance, of the triumvirate leadership that guided packs through the earliest days. Alpha, Beta, Omega, each with distinct gifts, each essential to the whole. Alpha Kane nodded, continuing. We have forgotten old wisdoms, dismissed ancient truths as fairy tales, and in doing so, we have weakened ourselves while believing we grew stronger. Murmurs rippled through the assembled pack members, some nodding in agreement, others looking confused or concerned. The council has therefore decided. Alpha Kane paused, and I held my breath. To honor the covenant, to restore the sacred role of Omega within our pack structure. To return to the old ways, not out of fear, but out of recognition that we have been incomplete. Relief washed through me, so intense it nearly buckled my knees. Beside me, the white wolf made a sound of approval. Drew Winters. Alpha Kane addressed me directly. You are acknowledged as the Omega of the Silver Lake Pack, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Your voice will carry equal weight to mine in council. Your insights will guide our decisions alongside considerations of strength and strategy. His words struck me speechless. After years of existing at the margins, to be suddenly elevated to leadership felt surreal, almost impossible to comprehend. There will be adjustments, Kane continued, for all of us. Old habits die hard, and the pack structure has been imbalanced for generations, but we begin today. He extended his hand toward me. If you accept. The white wolf nudged me forward. This is what you were born for, daughter of Winterborn. This is your inheritance. I moved to stand before Alpha Kane, feeling the weight of the moment. Not just for me, but for Omegas in all packs, for the future of our kind. I placed my hand in his, the pendant at my throat glowing softly. I accept, I said, my voice clear and steady. For the balance, for the covenant, for the pack. A ripple of energy passed between us as our hands clasped, not submission or dominance, but connection. Recognition, the beginning of something new. Alpha Kane turned to address the pack. Let it be known that from this day forward, the Silver Lake Pack returns to the old ways. The triumvirate leadership is restored. He gestured to Ezra. My enforcer has shown his loyalty to both Alpha and Omega, to strength and to wisdom. He will serve as Beta, bridging our perspectives, implementing our shared vision. Ezra's surprise was evident, but he stepped forward, accepting the role with a formal bow. When his eyes met mine, they held a promise that made my heart flutter despite the gravity of the moment. The White Guardians have witnessed our commitment. Alpha Kane concluded. The covenant is honored. The balance begins its restoration. The White Wolf leader rose, its massive form commanding attention. It is done. The first step is taken. We will be watching, as we have always watched, from the shadows between worlds. Will you stay? I asked aloud, suddenly reluctant to lose this connection to ancient wisdom just when I was beginning to understand it. Our physical forms will return to the wild places, but we remain bound to the covenant. Call, and we will answer. Always. Its blue eyes held mine. Your grandmother would be proud, daughter of Winterborn. You have awakened what slept for too long. The white wolf padded to the center of the lodge, its fur shimmering in the lantern light. It threw back its head in one final howl, a sound of triumph, of completion. Then, before our eyes, its form began to fade, becoming translucent, then transparent, until nothing remained but a lingering echo and a few white hairs drifting in the still air. Outside, 29 answering howls rose in perfect harmony before similarly fading into silence. The packed lodge erupted in excited whispers, the significance of what we'd witnessed rippling through the community. Helena was already making notes, preserving the historic moment for future generations. It seems we have much work ahead of us, Alpha Kane said, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty beneath the authoritative tone. We do, I agreed, surprising myself with my confidence. But we begin by listening, to each other, to the wisdom that still lives in our oldest stories, and to the voices that have been silenced for too long. Ezra added, moving to stand beside me. As the formal gathering dispersed into smaller clusters of animated discussion, Ezra guided me toward a quieter corner of the lodge. "How do you feel?" he asked, his gray eyes studying me with concern, overwhelmed, terrified, exhilarated. I laughed softly, the sound strange even to my own ears after so long without genuine joy. "Everything's changed so quickly." "Not everything," he murmured, his hand finding mine again. "Some things were there all along, just waiting to be acknowledged." The pendant warmed against my skin. But this time I knew it wasn't ancient magic, just my own heart responding to the tenderness in his gaze. "That golden thread I saw in the vision," I said softly. "Connecting us. It was real, wasn't it?" His smile deepened, as real as anything I've ever felt. He hesitated, then added, "I never acted on it before because of our positions in the pack, the enforcer and the rejected Omega. It would have made things worse for you. And now?" I asked, barely breathing. "Now we build something new, together." His fingers brushed my cheek, gentle as falling snow. "If you want to." My answer was to lean into his touch, the last walls around my heart finally crumbling. For so long, I'd believed my capacity to feel deeply was my greatest weakness. Now I understood it was my greatest strength, and the foundation for whatever might grow between us. Spring came to Silver Lake territory, melting the snow that had witnessed my transformation months before. The pack had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Old hierarchies were slowly giving way to a more balanced structure, with each wolf valued for their unique contributions rather than merely their strength or dominance. It hadn't been easy. Change never is, especially for those accustomed to power. Celine had struggled perhaps the most, her identity so long defined by her position as Alpha's mate, but something unexpected had emerged from our confrontation in the council lodge, a fragile understanding that gradually evolved into reluctant respect, and eventually, a tentative friendship built on shared vulnerability, finally acknowledged. The children adapted most quickly, flourishing under a system that valued sensitivity alongside strength, wisdom alongside power. I spent much of my time with them, teaching what my grandmother had begun to share with me before her death, supplemented by Helena's historical knowledge and the intuition that grew stronger with each passing day. My role as Omega evolved naturally, mediator of conflicts, perceiver of undercurrents, healer of old wounds that festered beneath the surface. The pendant remained my constant companion, occasionally warming with guidance or insight, a tangible connection to the lineage I now understood I carried. Ezra proved the perfect bridge between old ways and new, respected by the traditional members for his strength, trusted by the progressives for his fairness. Our relationship deepened alongside our leadership roles, the golden thread binding us growing stronger with each shared challenge, each quiet moment of connection. On this particular evening, we walked along the lakeshore, the ice long melted, stars reflecting on the calm water. Spring's gentle breeze carried the scent of new growth, of possibilities. "The Northern Territory's Alpha arrives tomorrow," Ezra reminded me, his hand warm around mine. "The first Interpack Council since the change." "I know." I smiled, leaning against his shoulder. "They're curious about the rumors, about the pack that returned to the old ways. About the Omega who called the White Guardians," he corrected, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Word has spread further than you realize. Other packs are watching, wondering if their own rejected ones might hold similar power." "Not power," I said softly. "Balance. That's what we're offering them, a return to wholeness." We reached the spot where, months ago, I had drawn mysterious symbols in the snow, the moment that had changed everything. Now wildflowers grew there, a perfect circle of white blooms that appeared from nowhere after the thaw, marking the place where ancient magic had stirred. I knelt, touching the delicate petals. "Do you think they're watching? The Guardians?" Ezra crouched beside me, his gray eyes reflecting the starlight. "I'm certain of it." As if in answer, a distant howl echoed across the lake. Too large to be one of our pack wolves, too wild to be anything ordinary. The pendant warmed against my skin, a silent confirmation. "Ready to change the world?" Ezra asked, helping me to my feet with a smile that still made my heart race. I laced my fingers with his, feeling the strength of our connection. Alpha, Beta, Omega, the triangle complete at last. One pack at a time. Behind us, Silver Lake territory stretched peaceful and united, the pack house lights glowing warmly in the distance. Before us lay the unknown, challenges, resistance, perhaps even danger from those who would resist the old ways. But for the first time in my life, I didn't face the future with fear. I was Drew Winters, Omega of Silver Lake, daughter of Winterborn. I had called the White Guardians from the wild places between worlds. I had remembered what others had forgotten, and I was not alone.